Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a warm welcome to all of you at the AAA Winner Series webinar. As many of you know, at Alpha Accurate Advisors PMS, we follow our unique 3M investment approach: market size, market share, and margin of safety. We buy the companies which are winners in their respective industries. Today, there are many examples of small size companies which have successfully moved up their ladder to become not only the large companies, but to become the market leaders in their sectors. One of the very important reasons, and I would say probably one of the biggest reasons for this success, is the revolutionary vision of their promoters who drive their companies through the numerous headwinds and tailwinds and emerge victorious. In AAA Winner Series, we plan to invite such founders who have led their firm to achieve victory despite the ups and downs of the Indian economy. Today, I find immense pleasure in introducing Mr. Chander Agarwal, the Managing Director of TCI Express Ltd, one of the fastest growing logistic companies in India. Let me introduce a little bit about TCI Express and also a little bit about Mr. Agarwal. Chander has a wealth of experience in the logistic business. Mr. Agarwal sits on the board of the Express Industry Council of India as a management committee member and has played an important role in bringing relevant changes to the logistic industry in India. His dedication to the logistic industry has won him many awards, including the Economic Times Most Promising Business Leader of Asia for the year 2016-17 and 2018-19. He is also recipient of CV Magazine's Managing Director of the Year 2016 and the World's Greatest Leaders 2015 Asia and GCC from the United Research Services and Asia One. Daily Media India's Inspiration Leaders of India Award in 2019 and WCRC Insights India's Aspirational Business Leaders in 2019. He has been active member of the entrepreneur organization since 2006. His company, TCI Express, was established in 1996 as one of the foremost divisions of the Transport Corporation of India. Later on, it demerged as an independent listed entity. TCI Express is one of India's fastest B2B express cargo delivery companies catering to all major manufacturing industries. Currently, TCI Express services cover 40,000 locations across India through 800 branches and 28 sorting centers. Over the last 5 years, the company has delivered an outstanding net profit compounded growth of 28%, and in turn, it has resulted into wealth creation of over 4 times in last 5 years. We are really thankful to Mr. Chander Agarwal for taking the time out of his busy schedule and chat with us today. Let me also inform you all the viewers that recorded version of this webinar will be available post the session. Let me now invite Mr. Chander Agarwal to join. Thank you. Sorry
Thank you
for that technology snag. Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. Thank you once again for joining, AAA Winner Series webinar. Chandraji, I remember, and I've been to market since 1994, and transport sector was always one of the sector which is very, closely monitored because it is linked to India's GDP. TCI, which started as a one office, one truck, I think in year 1959, if I'm not wrong. And then, of course, the birth of TCI Express. Can you share a little bit about how the evolution of reason of TCI Express, and because initially it was just a division of TCI. Can you run it through this? It will be very interesting for all of us to hear, from the horse's mouth.
So, in 1997, 98 is when we promoters saw that there is a need for faster service in the country, and the usual way of transportation was not time definite, was not moving in containers, did not have GPS standardization, and a lot of the customer approach was missing. Customer contact was missing. So we decided as promoters that we should have a customer centric door to door delivery company,
Mm-hmm.
where ultimately it will be of convenience to the customer, and it will be like a worry free, on time, time definite service. So India did not have any large player at that time, and it was a right opportune time for the group to get into it. Hence, the birth of TCI XPS happened.
I see. Fantastic.
Then, now if you fast forward 10 years down the line, or rather 20 years down the line, we felt that the way this company required the attention, and the way it was growing, it was hidden in large group. Hence we thought that for the benefit of investors, we should demerge it and delist it. And we saw another great opportunity in that, because the GST was coming into place, and it would mean that the way logistics will move in India will be very different from pre GST, how things were going to move for manufacturers. So it was, again, it was a very opportune time for us to demerge and delist in 2017.
Wow, fantastic. As I said, in fact, in my opening remark, that it is those revolutionary vision and the journey of these founders like you who make these things possible, because you could actually, you started, there's a very small division within the parent company TCI, and as the need arises, you then made it a separately listed company with a more focused approach to reach to your customers. And Chander, if I look at TCI, the core values of TCI: customer focus, ownership, responsiveness, and empathy. So these values, of course, are very critical for any organization. It is on those values that you move from 1x to 2x to 5x over a period of 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more on this, that how in your day-to-day life TCI Express breathe these values? Because you have a huge manpower, of course, number of vendors, number of customers. So how do you breathe these values in your day-to-day working life of TCI Express?
So, the interesting thing is that this core value system is something that I have actually taken it and evolved it to the new level of leader in TCI Express. So what essentially core was saying, we have now transferred it to, or rather transformed it to being a leader. If you look at the word leader, and if you look at in our value system and everything, every word LEADER stands for some denomination for our, in relation to our business. So that is something that we had to do it, to bring it very new, and with the times approach value system. And some of the things obviously don't ever change, customer focus. But now customer is very across the country, there are all types of customers, they're very different, and at the same time they're also very demanding. So to cater to all that, we had to redefine and re put in every employee's mind the word leader, and hence also then our company motto became leader in express.
Wow, fantastic. So you are saying that from culture perspective, every employee basically breathe that how you need to behave as a leader when it comes to relationship, or when it comes to service providing, when it comes to making sure that you are at the right time at the right right place. That's how basically you are making sure that entire organization moves along with the your vision.
Exactly.
And
So we also had to now change one. I just want to add, we also had to change, and bring in the express culture that was missing.
Mhm.
So everybody had to think, faster. Everybody had to speed up their thinking in a way. So it required a culture change. So we had to do that also. So that was a part of that whole process.
Wow, that's very amazing. It is not only about express logistics, but express thinking that how everybody needs to move in such kind of a time with the speed. And I think that is really very insightful. Chandar, since we are talking about logistics and then of course express logistics, and you have a hands-on experience when you were in USA, working with the companies in the logistics space. How do you correlate, USA to India? And I think you were in USA probably about 1.5 decade ago or so. So do you see any trends? When US experience similar, what I would say, revolutions about 30, 40, 50 years back, or China basically experienced it probably about 20 years back. Are there any similarities, anything which you would like to share from the your US hands-on experience?
One thing I learned today, since one thing which is applicable today, what I learned from, my experience in the US, is that India will move to a just-in-time economy eventually,
Mm-hmm.
because the tax system is being built in such a way where it is being demand-driven. Before GST, it was supply-driven. The economy was supply-driven.
Mm-hmm.
What the manufacturer manufacture, the consumer had that. But now manufacturers have to make what consumer want first, and that is something, that shift is happening, has started happening, and will happen in a big way. So why that happens? One thing we must know is because logistics cost in India is very high, and if you look at the US, such a large economy, and we would imagine that the logistics cost is the highest, but it is actually the lowest, in the developing economies. When India, being a developing economy, and the GDP not being very high compared to rest of those countries, our logistics cost is highest. So it means that there is a big demand and supply mismatch. So in every aspect, not just manufacturer and consumer, but in even in logistics, there is a demand mismatch in the number of service providers and the actual service required. For example, there are many more unorganized players in the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, there is a demand mismatch. Hence, the logistics cost is high. You know, and then so to kind of counter this high logistics cost, the economy will have to move from supply driven to demand driven. And to move to a demand driven economy, it has to be just in time. Now, the cost of storage of material is very high in India. Okay, and manufacturers cannot afford that. Consumers cannot afford that. So it has to be moving straight from manufacturing without storage to the distributor to the consumer in the fastest way. So I think this is something I saw that big gap in India, which needs to be fulfilled. And this gap, I think, first was to identify what is the gap. Second was how do you fill the gap, and third is execution of that. So we are now at between stage 1 and 2, between identify and execute and filling the gap. So I think to come to that third level will take another maybe half a decade or something, when we will see the logistics cost actually coming down and the GDP going up.
I see. I see. So basically, Chandra, what you're trying to say is that the logistic cost basically will reduce over a period of time as the industry becomes more organized, or it is a more of a approach whereby the requirement itself will make it such a low because of the large economies of scale.
No, it will. The economy will want it to be organized first of all, because you see in any of the in the large developed countries, the unorganized segment is not that large. But in India, the unorganized segment is massive in every sector, in every domain of industry. So this, I think, has to be really strongly cornered, and this will only happen, as the GDP expands, as the GDP moves towards a unified tax system, and all of that. So that is why I was saying that it would take about another 5 years, because you see, now 2017 when GST came out, India has been going through, tumultuous times. We've had demonetization, we've had the e-way bill, then we've had politically the Article 370, then we had pseudo war with China, pseudo war with Pakistan in the matter of 3 years. And we also had floods in Kerala multiple times, floods in Bombay. Then at the same time, we've had now the virus in 2020. So 2017 to 2020 has not really given the way for the GST, manifestation amongst all the manufacturers, whether they are organized or unorganized, in a large way. So I think when this phase is over, is when and we move to GST 2.0, is when we will see that the economy growing much faster.
I see. And I think that brings to, what I would say our favorite first M, so we have a 3M investment approach, and first M stands for, market size. It's basically the size of opportunity. And if I look at Indian logistic industry is roughly about, about $210 billion, about 1,50,000 crores. And probably express logistic is about 25,000 crores. And logistic is an integral part of the economy. And if I see the world ranking of India in logistics has also improved probably by a few notches, from I think around from 55 or something like that. So do you see that this while the India GDP will grow, being an emerging economy, bound to grow probably faster than the world, how do you see the growth opportunity in the logistics sector? And probably after that, I will also like to ask that what are the challenges in this, to achieve that kind of a growth, to make sure that our logistic cost reduce. But probably we'll discuss in later part. If you can, give color on, how do you see the opportunity, size of opportunity, and also if you can talk about how the express logistic industry is expected to grow from here on over next, say, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Right. So, I'll start by saying that the express trucking industry that we are in comprises of that 210, the 1.5 lakh crore business. But the express, if you look at express world, that is comprising of courier, air cargo, and international air import and export. Essentially, that is express. So that is only 25,000 crore.
Correct.
But where TCI Express is today, that is in that market of TCI Express is express trucking, where it is actually in that 1,50,000 crore bracket. So that's where we will want to, we will always find our market size there. Now, the realistically, if you see, if India's GDP is say $10 trillion in by 2030, from the $3 trillion approximate that we are at now, that it is going to go three times, which means that it will be a, as per the calculation, three times of 210 will be, it will be a 610 billion
Yeah.
dollar industry. Now,
Correct.
610 billion is only the road, because the logistics cost is 15% of the economy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, 2030, even if we discount it by 5% and we make it 10%, let's say we become more efficient in 15 years, in 10 years. So 10 trillion, or 10 trillion economy and 10% logistics cost is $1 trillion is the market size of the logistics industry, out of which 600 billion, three times of the 210, what you are saying, will be the road express or the road trucking size.
Sure.
So that is the kind of market we are seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
Three times minimum is what, of that large scale is the economy size
I see.
or the current size. Sorry.
True. And while of course the economy will keep growing and that results into natural growth for the logistics sector, what are the primary growth drivers to make sure that logistics becomes more efficient? Of course, on one side, if you look at the government is taking number of steps, the expressways, the significant work on the freight corridors, similarly, work on port side. And if you look at the railway, the traffic growth which they are expecting over next 5-10 years. So how do you see the efforts from the government side? Is it in line with what you are expecting, or you think there is a much more requirement from the government side to ensure smoother growth for the sector?
Government is doing a phenomenal job in terms of how logistics is spanning out in the country. First basic thing, what anything, since we know that Niti Aayog has said that India logistics is 70% by road.
Yeah.
So government did take on the onus of building the highways, first of all. So they are not building 50 airports. They're not building so many ports. They had talked about inland waterway, but they're building highways. I think they are earmarking every annually 1 to 1.5 lakh crores only on road construction.
Right.
So that itself manifests that first of all, that road is here to stay. It is the ultimate way to get to the village at the lower cost. Connecting large city to the village. Rail cargo is very difficult to do that. Laying of the railway lines will take too much time, and the investment will be forever. It will take another 100 years to cover that expense. And of course, airports, because of the infra that we have for airports is very very poor. So the best bet is to expand on the road network. Hence, that is happening, and that is something which we the government has seen that it will help in bringing down the logistics cost also. So building of highways is one. Second is that implement the taking note of the unorganized segment. Now, for that, the government has introduced tax system, unified tax system for the whole country. So that through the GST, so that is also being taken care of. Earlier, we never used to talk about GST collection, but GST collection is a big topic every month, end of the month. It was I don't remember hearing so much about VAT collection for some
Yeah.
reason.
Correct.
You know, it's now about GST collection. So, unorganized segment, highways, and third, what the government needs to really do is control the escalating fuel cost. They have to find a way, because it is not just for the logistics sector. High fuel costs will be detrimental, but it will be for the inflation of the country and for the general population, where the cost of living will go much, much higher than what it should be. So if these three things are in control and in check, then I'm sure that whatever plans the government has and the public sector has and the private sector has will go forward in full swing.
And since you mentioned about the unorganized sector, and you briefly touch upon it, that GST is one of the very important thing which resulted into a little bit formalization of the sector. So of course you have a GST demonetization, and then of course this credit crisis, and of course now the pandemic crisis. So what we are hearing on ground is a lot of unorganized sector is under significant stress. The bankers are not probably willing to give easy credit to such unorganized players. So on ground, are you seeing significant what I would say market shares shifting from unorganized to organized?
It is happening, but it is also not visible. Now I'll tell you why. Because the real shift happens when demand is through the roof, when demand is very high, it's picked up, manufacturing has picked up, and there are not enough service providers.
Okay.
So what has happened is that even if there are not, if the unorganized segment is not there, the demand is not that strong to really see, is not that high.
Okay.
So demand is not at 100%, let's say. So supplier will always be available at 80%. A supplier will also be, sorry, available at 120, 130%. So when demand reaches 100, then this when the suppliers come down to 80, which it will mean that the unorganized segment is reducing. So when the economy is in full swing, is when we will be able to see the real impact of the unorganized segment, how much is left and what is really going on there.
Understood. Great. And Chandraji, since TCI Express is primarily currently focusing on B2B segment, but then there is a other very big segment B2C, which is now actually further accelerating because of huge growth in the e-commerce side. So at what point of time you think TCI Express will also evaluate B2C, or you think probably the profitability is too low in that segment, and since you are very very what I would say disciplined in terms of return on capital employed, you would not enter into that segment till it offers the your benchmark return on capital employed.
Yes, I don't think TCI Express will look at B2C. Uh, Now, I'll tell you the one of the main reasons. Now, if you look at companies which are uh, catering to B2C, are number one, very few, and B2C companies in India also very few. There are hardly maybe two large ones and maybe a few small ones. I'm not sure about the small ones. Now, what has happened is that the B2C model, they are trying to copy exactly from the Western countries. Western country GDP per capita is $12,000. India, it is $2,000. So that, first of all, there is a big mismatch there. So it will take another 10, 15 years to come to that level, hopefully. Then secondly is the problem of mobile connectivity or internet connectivity. That also hinder in India. That also hinders e-commerce. Third thing is that we have the Kirana stores in India. So till they are there, I do not see e-commerce companies making a big dent or inroad into the Kirana system or the daily utility of a household. So these three major factors will ensure that the B2C pricing remains low, and it is only just a marvel product, not really a need of the day. Hence, we will also be staying away from that.
Oh, I see. Uh, but I must say there are companies which are into B2C which are getting crazy valuations by the private equity investors, despite they are probably losing huge money on the balance sheet side. But that's okay. From our perspective, you are absolutely right. What matters is ultimately return on capital employed, and that's even our motto when we invest into any business. Chandra, in terms of this pandemic, and I think logistics has played very important role in the recent times in the pandemic crisis. So pre-COVID versus post-COVID, do you see any significant change in your business, in your practices, in how you grow your business? Would you like to share some insights into how do you see the post-COVID world for your company and maybe for sector?
I think post COVID, we have become more agile. And of course, uh, the technology we already had and which we were not using, we started using that.
Mhm.
For example, we have 800 branches in the country. So every time to talk to the branch, we had to call up or to have a meeting, we used to ask them to congregate.
Mhm.
Now, first time in the history of my group, I spoke to every single branch head throughout the country over a period of 7 to 8 months, 7 months actually. And this was a game changer again because the management, what we used to think as a as you know the let's say the corporate office, that was that was delivered first hand to the extreme, the most junior employee of the company. So this was a very important aspect, and not just for me, but for my other colleagues, for them to establish this as a better medium of communication than maybe having physical meetings. So this was one very important factor. And then secondly, also we in the need of the day, we saw that some of the services that we were not providing, we established those new products, and we saw also the adoption of those products by our customers in positive. So that was also a very important learning aspect for us. And thirdly, we saw that uh, even though the business was lower, how can we be more cost effective? How can we be more efficient? So that these three things really helped us in gaining our foothill, or rather putting our foot deeper into the ecosystem of the express trucking business.
So you mentioned about many things in this thing, and if I take few important points of your answer what you gave me just now, one important thing is you mentioned about the new areas of growth. So would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that? That what are the new areas of growth which you are exploring? Number one, and number two, from your infrastructure perspective, the sorting centers, the number of offices, number of branches, the warehouses, how TCI Express is planning to expand the infrastructure over next 3, 4, 5 years.
So we have, let me start by infrastructure. Now, sorting centers are very important for a hub and spoke network. So hub and spoke network, they have to be lean. It also has to be very quick, and efficient. Quick and efficiency is the need for express trucking. We right now, if a truck comes in, it halts for 8 to 9 hours. We want in our sorting center, this halting comes down to 4 hours, to 4 to 3 hours, so that the material is reaching faster to the customer. And this is something that we have put our uh, uh, infrastructure team and our corporate office to work together and build out the most dynamic sorting center the country will ever see. Uh, in by September and October. So that is something which we plan to do this across uh, 10 to 12 major sorting centers in the country.
Mhm.
So this sort of efficiency will get us that that volume that we can generate, that has never been done before. The volume, kind of volume that we are doing, we're almost doing, you can say, one and a half, uh, one and a half percent of the India's GDP by value. So this will double, so which will also mean that our revenue top line will also, grow much faster in comparison to what it is today. So all these things, I think, will, so the branch network, sorry, and then the expansion of the branch network, that will connect to these mega sorting centers in the most efficient way, and that will bring about that further efficiency that we require. Now, tomorrow, in 4 years, we will have 2,000 offices in the country. And to, really get that volume going in that speedy and efficient manner, this sort of automation will be required. And hence, we are doing that now. We have felt the need that it should be done. The labor costs are increasing day by day in the country. Uh, so that is also something which I do not foresee at state level it is going to come down. Hence, the automation is the need of the day, and we will go forward with that.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that because, in fact, your last year annual report cover page talks about tagline is, I think, is faster growth via smarter technology. So automation and innovation is becoming what I would say increasingly important for the global logistic industry. Would you like to share, few examples, Chandraji, from the customer perspective, how you are, making, use of technologies in a newer way, in a smarter way, in an efficient way? Because there are a lot of talk about big data analysis and robotics and cloud based thing. You can track your vehicle online, and many more such things has been happening last 2 3 4 years. What are the new things from the customer perspective? Maybe one or two example, because I think India is becoming increasingly digital India, and it would be
Yeah.
great from our viewers perspective if you can share some insights on that.
So one basic thing that logistics customer need is an app that will show you how you can book, for what service, at what price, and when it will reach. So today, a person sitting in Nagpur can book material to Netherlands on the app that we have, or even from Nagpur to anywhere in the country that is possible. That can be delivered. We will do that. So that is one basic thing. From the app, you are able to conduct your B2B business without any hassles. Now, if what you're talking about, the AI and the data analytics and everything, that is all being
Backend.
already done
True.
for internal utility, internal efficiency.
Sure.
And that is something which customer only will see when his material is delivered faster and safely. So that is something we bring in with which is tuned with our automation. Now, with automation, everything, one important thing, what is going to happen is that the volume is going to grow much higher than what we are at. With that, we will need IT, which is also as robust as our operations. So because IT, the data has to follow the goods. One cannot, they have to be in sync. So the in order to get that data in sync, we are moving everything to the cloud now. There will not be any physical servers, across the country.
Mhm.
So when we are able to do that, the data computation is much faster. So suppose we are having 25-30% volume growth every year. That amount of data a physical server will not be able to do. So we are investing in that cloud that will do that data computation. Simultaneously, it will also be, through the 900 or the 1,000 or the 2,000 offices, it will be connected through a VPN. So that data security is also is ensured. So things like this will benefit us, the company, as well as the client, the customer.
I see. And if I look at your revenue breakup, I think good part of revenue, almost probably about 50% of your revenue comes from MSE side of the segment. So post pandemic, I think you are probably the best what I would say barometer. I mean your company's perspective that how the impact of pandemic on the MSE MSME segment, and how do you see this segment to perform as India opens up post this current pandemic crisis.
I can tell you one thing. Last year, when economy started opening up in after lockdown
Mm-hmm.
in May, middle of May, MSE was the first to spring up. Large factories were shut. They would take time to start up, but MSE started right away. Now, there are different level of MSE. Uh, MSE that we cater to are pretty much the organized segment, and ultimately they become a large company eventually. So we do not go down to the cash level MSE, because cash level MSE is, we don't know, we don't deal with that at all.
Sure.
Once the government is able to change this cash MSE to organized MSE, is when they will also become our customer. So
True.
that will happen. When that happens, we will be ready for them. So MSE was the first to bounce back. The cash MSEs were impacted, which are anyway not our customers. And even now, we are seeing that they are liquid. MSEs are liquid now. They have they have manufactured their goods, and they are waiting to be shipped out as it is opening up. Already the demand is very robust, what I'm seeing since the past 1 or 2 weeks.
Sure. Sure. And if I look at and since we are discussing, I think questions are already started coming in. If I look at there are a number of new startups in the logistics space like Blackbuck and Rivigo with probably new business models. A few of them are also getting valuations. Do you think the logistics sector is at the point of a disruption? And if yes, how do you see a TCI Express positioning in that new world of disruptions?
So I can tell you one thing: India economy is not a mature economy. Disruption is required where the economy is mature. So to become in a mature economy, we will have to attain at least 10, $15 trillion, or even say $6, $7 trillion economy with our large population. India does not need disruption. What we need is service provider. So my there is so much business, as I mentioned. In 10 years, it'll be a $1 trillion opportunity.
Mhm.
So for that, you don't need disruption. We don't need disruption. We need service providers. So if companies, instead of burning cash, if they are able to, understand, get to the ground, and really start doing the business, then they will also benefit. Customer will also benefit, and competition will also benefit. So I think this is the need of the day. And as far as valuation goes, I have a very clear thinking that profit is sanity,
Correct.
and
Cash flow is
top line
reality. Vanity.
is
True.
vanity.
True. Cash flow is reality. You are absolutely right. That's what
Exactly.
exactly what we keep. What I would say, keep saying this to all the promoters whenever we meet them. That ultimately what matters is the cash flow and free cash flow, the cash and bank balance. That's what matters. So if I look at
TCI Express as of now, sorry, TCI Express as of now has 100 crore in the bank balance. No other logistics company will have that.
Sure. I think probably TCI Express is the only company with such a high return on net worth and return on capital employed, and very importantly, also reported huge profit growth despite challenges in Indian economy. So that actually brings one question to you, Chander. What is the secret of this? What is the secret of such a asset-light model and at the same time very strong compounding growth in last 4 5 years?
See, it is very simple. One must know the uh, the business ground that we are working in. That is, every company should know that where they are at, what is the level, what is the playing field, and secondly, it is also being to be grounded. If both these things happen, you must know. So it's like they're related also. You must know what's going on the ground, and to know what's going on in the ground, you have to be grounded. If I am flying high and I want to establish business in a tough environment, it will be very difficult. So these two are the main secrets. Rest is of course one has to really think and uh, be be focused in one business, not do multiple things to establish.
Sure. Sure, you are absolutely right. I think the core competence is and focused approach, and of course, very important, as you rightly mentioned, be on the ground. The ground level execution is critical for any company's success to have such a strong double-digit return on invested capital. So Chandra, in terms of ESG, nowadays a lot of people are talking about ESG. Do you think logistic will achieve their carbon footprint in India at some point of time, how this industry is moving from ESG perspective?
We will be the first company to establish a carbon footprint uh, in going forward. There will be few announcements which I will make once the
Okay.
new sorting center is established.
Okay.
And I think we are the only company also in India which has a ESG portal. So maybe please correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a very important step to take for the future generation and for everyone to realize that the environmental sacrifice that we're making to achieve the economic growth, we can also counter that. So I think it's a very important aspect.
Thanks for that feedback. And there is one important question which was there even in my mind is that when you're talking about the logistic cost and if I think the World Bank has improved our ranking to 48th from 54 in last 3 4 years. How do you compare the logistic cost of India versus, say, other emerging countries? And in last 2 3 years, are there any trends which shows the efficiency is improving?
So, one very important aspect for logistics cost is the cost of fuel.
Okay,
So, cost of fuel is still very high in India. So, as I mentioned earlier, till we don't bring that down, it will be very difficult to reduce our standing in the moving away from the top logistics cost country.
I see. So you are saying that one is of course the fuel, which is probably the role which government has to decide. But if you take out X fuel, is there any metrics to measure the competitiveness of India's logistic industry compared to other emerging countries?
Uh, so, if we do not look at the logistics cost, I think one has to look at the amount of manufacturing in any country.
Sure.
What is the level of manufacturing?
Yep.
So if India is at, I think, only 30% of manufacturing,
Yep.
maybe other emerging economies are only at 10%.
True. True.
So that difference can be also gauged.
Okay. Okay. And there is one important question I'm getting in the chat box is that national logistics policy. Any view on that? Any impact of that? Do you see any important what I would say takeaways? For TCI Express.
So logistics policy is very important. First of all, to be recognized as an industry also, since independence was a very remarkable thing done by the government, because it is the main artery of a life cycle lifeline for everybody, for industries, for basically everything,
Yeah.
and giving it that into the national logistics policy It will ensure that some sort of, discrepancies which remain go away. Now, there are some things which have not been, of course, not been addressed by the government, which I think will happen as we go along.
Okay. Okay. And one very important question, and I would say that probably answer to that question can help probably many entrepreneurs, many of our investors. Is it typically, whenever a company starts small, and TCI has been started small, and then of course right now is number one company in the country, there are many small, medium-sized entrepreneurs, and they face kind of a challenges. When you move your revenue from 10 crores to 100 crores, challenges are different. When you move from 100 crores to 1,000 crores, challenges are different. And when you move from 1,000 to 10,000, challenges are completely different. Scale is something which is very, very critical. What is your, what are your tips to, our viewers, who are watching this thing live, in terms of how one should scale? What are the important things which one needs to keep in mind to achieve the scale?
So scale, I think, you know, scale is something which can happen on the one of the best way to determine, how your scalability is the size of the market, that one is in, first of all, and then how fast it is growing. And then third, if it is growing at a certain speed, how can that individual make strategy to grow faster than that? Now, most people to grow faster than the real growth time it takes, they do that by reducing price. So that is actually not a very sustainable way of growing. So my belief is that one has to grow in tandem with the growth of the economy, which is the safest and the most logical way to go. In fact, all the world's top companies have grown in that manner because it is sustainable and it has grown for a long time. And we have also grown that way.
Fantastic. I'm sure that must be very, very important insight for many of our investors who are also very successful, medium-sized enterprises and now planning to grow bigger in their respective field. Well, I think that ends our, webinar. I'm really very thankful to, Chanderji for your valuable time to come on this webinar. I'm sure this adds value to all of us, we as investors and as well as our viewers. Friends, that ends today's session. Before I end the session, I would also like to take opportunity to thank every participant. And also I would like to put a disclaimer that this webinar is not any recommendation. We hold TCI Express in our PMS for our investors. So please make a note of the same. And lastly, the YouTube link of this webinar will be available soon on www.alphaaccurate.com and also would be sent to you through email. Thank you, friends. Wish you, happy weekend. And thank you, Chanderji, once again for your valuable time. Thank you.